Today is all about how to make things stop moving. Hey y'all, I'm James Wright and welcome to my shop. I've been building this bench for the last while and I am in love with it. I finally got to the point where I can actually build some things on it. If you want to see the build thus far, I have a link to the videos up here and down below. But now I want to actually start talking about some of the other things that we don't always think of part of the bench, but they really are. They're some of the extras and things that I'm going to be making for this bench and purchasing so that it becomes far more functional. And that's going to be planing stops, holdfasts, and bench dogs, along with a few other variations of each. So let's dive in and take a look. I'm going to start with this block of white oak. It's about 2 inches by 2 3/4, and this will be the main mast that the planing stop will go into. This is a very traditional planing stop and not like some of the other ones you may have seen recently. So I just wanted to show what I like to do. Yes, my bench is wobbling a little bit. I don't have enough weight to keep it on its spots because my floor is uneven. When it slides off, then it's on an uneven space in the floor and wobbles again. So eventually I'll fix that, but bear with me for this video. It will wobble while I'm planing on it. I've done several videos on dimensioning lumber, and I don't want to go into too much detail in this because you can cover those in others, but basically I want to plane two sides 90 degrees to each other, and then I can bring the other two sides into parallel with those two first sides. I can use that with a series of winding sticks and planes to bring it down to where I want to be, and I'm pretty darn happy with how this one ended out. I want to make sure that they're really nice and clean because it will need to be mortised into a hole. Speaking of that hole, I'm going to put that at the far end of my bench, basically right behind the last leg, close to the corner so that I can use it in line with my dog holes, but in a general location so I can use it for a lot of other things. After marking out the holes and transferring them, I'm going to use a brace and bit and get to the boring part. I'm going to be putting in a bunch of holes here to make it easier to remove most of this material because I am going through 4.5 inches of white oak, so it takes a bit to chop it all out. But when I drill the holes out all the way around, then I can come in with a chisel and very easily remove the majority of the waste very quickly. And with a few strokes in between, I can pop out that piece, and then I have this open hole that I can work with, and I just have to clean everything back to the lines that I drew earlier. Speaking of those lines, with this large open hole, it is actually very easy to get into it and see what you're doing. It's a good way of practicing mortises, I would guess, except for you're probably not going to do this if you haven't done mortises before. So, but I can work back and forth and bring all the sides into true and then test it with the leg and clean it up and slowly bring it to exactly where it needs to be. Once I have the hole fairly well done, then I can test it with the leg. I want it to be a very tight fit. I want to have to pound this up and down so that it doesn't want to slide away on me, and that should keep it fairly good in the future. Once I have it to where I want it, I can basically plane it down just like I would with a shooting board, using the bench as a shooting board, just being careful not to shave the bench any more than it already has been. And here you can kind of see the force I left it with, so I can drive it up and down with a mallet. I really like how fairly easy it is. I can just grab a mallet and tap it up and down to where I want to be and put it to the exact height. So if I want to plane something at 1/4 inch, I can. Whereas if I want to plane something that's 4 inches up, I can do that too. Next, I need to drill out a hole for the actual planing stop to go into. This is a 3/4 inch hole. And then I want to relieve a little bit of the wood at the top so that the planing stop ends up being flush with the top of this block, because I want to be able to recess this whole thing down into the bench so that it can be flush with the top in the future. Next, I need to chop out a little bit of the bench as well so I can put the planing stop into the block, mark out where that needs to be, then raise it back up and chop out that little bit that I need to make it so it will recess into the bench and go perfectly flush. I don't know why, but this part was actually really fun. Chopping into the bench that I kind of consider finished was kind of nice. But here you can see how it works. You can just put the board on there and plane to town. It is a really simple system, and I really like how it is. Very traditional, very straightforward, and easy to work with. Next, I want to look at a different planing stop. and have a little bit of fun with the difference between this more traditional planing stop and then another one that fits into the dog holes. I want to make one that goes all the way across the bench, so I saved this stick that I used when laying out all the holes to make sure that I transfer the holes precisely to the planing stop so that they will line up exactly with the holes that are existing on the bench top. After putting those marks on this piece of 1/4 inch thick white oak, actually it's slightly over 1/4 inch by 3 inch, I can then drill out the holes to basically put dogs into it. Now I'm drilling these to be a 1/16 of an inch smaller than the holes in my bench top. So my bench top is 3/4. These, the dowel I got is 1/16 inch thinner than my holes. That'll give it a little bit of wiggle room if they weren't drilled exactly where they need to be. I cut them to 5 inches long and then chamfered off the ends to make them a little bit easier to slide into the holes. This way they can go through the planing stop and be glued into place. I'm using a bit of 5-minute epoxy so that I could work on it fairly quickly. And it also has a little bit more flex than regular epoxy, so it will hold into this thinner piece of wood a little bit better. And I kind of like that over just simple wood glue. After they're dry, I can put it into the holes just like it will be as a planing stop, and then plane it all down, smooth off the dowels. So I had them sticking up through the top a little bit more so that I can smooth them out and make it a really nice top surface. And with a little bit of work on that, we can, well, basically have a finished planing stop. That's about all there is to it. Set it in place, put a board on it, and just like with the other one, you can plane easily. And this is very nice because you can easily pick up the board at any time, look at it, see if there's a square, and put it back down, not having to worry about clamps. Another nice benefit of this style is that I can put a wider board on it and plane anywhere on this board, and it would still be held in place and not move at all. And it's a very, very efficient way of planing, and one I think I'm going to be doing more with now with this bench. Last up, I just put some boiled linseed oil on both of the planing stops, and that's about it. They are finished and ready to go and ready for years of use. The nice thing is both of these only took an hour or so to make, and anytime I need to, I can make another one. So as to other extras you can possibly get for the bench, planing stops are something that I'm going to be trying to be using a lot more. They tend to be a little bit versatile, quicker to use, but that is only half of the work of holding things in place so that you can work them down. I'm still going to be using the tail vise for a lot of odds and ends, particularly going across the grain and anytime I want to actually clamp something down for carving and things like that. I love using dogs. Now I have two different dogs. I have the little bench pups and then the full dogs. They're from Rockler. I got them on Amazon. I'll leave a link to them down below. But they're made of aluminum, so if you hit them with a plane, not a problem. As you can see, some of these older ones I've actually shaved the top off a couple times. Oops, oh well. But I like the aluminum over the wood. The wood feels a little more organic. Up to you. The Holdfasts as well as the metal planing stop are all from Black Bear Forge. I love his work, does some amazing stuff. He makes several different types of Holdfasts, and these are fantastic. They're quick, they're easy to use. You can tap them down, lock anything in place, and with a little bit of movement across the bench, you can actually connect anything you want if you set the holes up correctly. So I'll leave a link to his work as well down below. And yeah, I do actually have a whole video on holdfasts and other work holding with vices, so if you'd like to see that, I'll leave a link to those videos as well. Now this is just scratching the surface on some of the extras that you can have for a bench, and I'm just talking about, you know, the planing stops, bench dogs, and holdfast. You can also get bench hooks and you know, the shooting board, other things like that you use on the bench quite a bit. And yes, I will be making videos on those in the future, but these are the things that I use all the time. And I really like how they're just simple tools. I mean, a holdfast is just a really, really simple design for a clamp. Holds things in place, and you don't have to mess with it too much. I really like that. Bench dogs, very simple use, how they just slide in a hole and hold things in place. The planing stop is fantastic for planing because I don't have to, you know, unclamp and reclamp it every time I want to look at the board. I can just pick it up and use it. And I'm wanting to use those a lot more than I did on my old bench, mostly because I trust the holes in this hardwood top a lot better than I do in the Douglas fir bench. But even then, that probably wasn't that much of a problem. So I hope you like this video. There's a lot of little bits of information here and there, and I'm really enjoying this. If you want to see more on this bench build, you can look at that down in the description or up in the box. And I want to say an incredible thank you to the patrons on Patreon. You guys really are the reason why I can keep putting out videos like this every week, several times a week. And if you'd like to find out more about that and help out with Patreon, you can do so right down here. Also, if you want to subscribe or see behind the scenes footage, feel free to check out those. Until next day, have a wonderful time.